Today I'll talk about this book I bought. It's called Male Feast by John Foley. I bought it in the Imperial War Museum in London, as well as some others, and I really enjoyed this book and I want to talk a little bit about it. It's a war memoir by John Foley. He was a tank commander as well as a troop commander during World War II. That meant he led his own tank, a Churchill tank, as well as two other Churchills, that's a troop, inside a much bigger squadron and a tank regiment. But he focuses more on his own squadron, the two other tanks of Squadron 8, or Troop A. He does a really good job at conveying what war was like for an individual soldier. The book is not very romantic. It doesn't go a lot into depth about literature or some subjective meanings of war. It's just his own memories and what he recalls about the war. And I think in this particular case that works really well, because you get to see what was like for an ordinary soldier to fight a war. It was very confusing and very uneventful, and when the few times that it was eventful, it was usually not very pleasant. So I think this kind of book is important because it shows war much more genuine as it actually was. It's not this romanticized version that we usually see in movies or in modern books or in video games, where you see like an epic battle between Germans and British, or Germans and Americans, and then they're victorious and that's the end of that. No, it's a lot more confusing. There's sometimes he didn't know where he was. There's these mean times in battles where usually in movies they're cut off because they're awfully boring, but they had no chance. They had to be in that boring part of the war, and it was usually very dreadful because they could be ambushed at any time. They had to endure cold winters, and sometimes their tanks broke down. Sometimes the food was poisoned. In one part, he used the wrong chemical to do the washing, and all his clothes started to dissolve and lose their color. And they painted a little, like, I think it was troop number 5, laundry services in the back of the tank. So it has a lot of little details that you don't usually think about in war, because they're overshadowed by this bigger, huge battle, epic, everything guns blazing. It does have some action of that sort if you're interested. There's a handful of events where he goes into hand-to-hand combat with other tanks as well as self-propelled guns, if you're interested in that. If it's a tiger, obviously there has to be a tiger tank in the book. But it's usually very undescriptive of the events. He's very confused. He doesn't recall what exactly happened, because in reality in war you don't get to see like the enemy at all its glory. You don't get to see where it is exactly. You usually see some bushes moving over there or a shadow in the horizon, and you just shoot at it until it stops moving, and well, it should be a kill. So it represents war in a way that not a lot of other media does. It's not particularly gruesome or sad for a war book. He's very optimistic about his troop, mostly because all of them survived, well, almost all of them. And he describes it not with a lot of dread on his words. He's very cheerful that he got through with his own men, especially the ones of his troop. So it has some action. It's not terribly gruesome, and it does give some insight to what the war was actually like for a regular soldier. So yeah, I really like this book, Male Feast by John Foley. Get it if you can. I really recommend it. Okay.